Hey again, everyone. Thank you all for joining yet again. We had a great session a couple of days ago with Beth Davidson talking about healthcare in New York, everything that she's been doing as she's been traveling the district and hearing from New Yorkers. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about who I am, why we're here, and what we're doing, as well as about Medicaid. And of course, we're really lucky to have Mike Sachs with us today, who is running for Congress in New York 17. And he's going to share a little bit about his journey and what he hopes to accomplish both in his run and if he was elected as our nominee and representative. But first today, I want to start off, especially in today's day and age, to just kind of know your messenger. And so for those I haven't met, hi, I'm Kevin McAvey. I'm a Bedford resident. I'm a father of 3 and husband in New York 17. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, a policy wonk. I work for a leading national healthcare consultancy, and in full transparency, I'm a moderate Democrat. But I very much believe in evidence-based policy, and I'm seeing less and less of it now, in the past few months. And which has really pushed me to get off of the sidelines and into the game. And I cannot emphasize this enough. So last time, 2 days ago, we had our live stream, and then the Facebook integration didn't work. So I wanted to say this out loud, and I'm going to warn you, cover your ears. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But I know it's important, and I know it's important to so many of you. The first social media video I posted was back in February, and since then across Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, which I don't know how to use, but I post there. We've had over 150,000 views and thousands of comments and messages, all of which I appreciate. And for me, it just reminds me that I'm not alone in wanting to understand the issues and get the honest truth about what's at stake in the policies that are being put forward, and really get a check on whether they reflect our values or not. And so through this series of interviews coming up and through our conversations throughout, I wanted to make sure that everyone leaves a little bit smarter about the issues and thinking about whether the path forward is the one for them. And in particular, with our conversation today, really thinking about are these the candidates that we want to hire to represent us? So over the past few months, my goal has really been to raise awareness of forthcoming cuts to our Medicaid program. I've seen firsthand through my work and my life the importance of this program for our most vulnerable and low-income residents across the country and across New York, and really encourage residents of New York 17 to get involved in the policymaking process, really exercise our muscles. Because that's what this democracy is about, making sure that we're individually heard and heard through the voices of the representatives we select. What you've talked a little bit about last time, the One Big Beautiful Bill, which did pass the House last week with Mr. Lawler's vote. And it does contain sweeping Medicaid cuts. So where do we go from here? Where I would like to go from here is to continue to share details on key federal policy issues, particularly around healthcare, with all of you on a regular basis to support an informed and engaged constituency. I think we've been lacking that, and we haven't had as much reason maybe in the past few years as we might have right now. But there's no more important time, in my belief, for us to get involved and be smart about the issues and really think about how we want to be represented. I also want to make sure we're introducing our district residents to candidates across the board seeking the New York 17 Democratic nomination in the Lower Hudson Valley. We had Beth on 2 days ago. We have Mike here today. I'll be bringing him on in a couple of minutes. I'm really thankful that he's here. And if you follow me online, you'll be the first to know of some of these other candidates who will be joining us this week, next week, and the following week, all to have similar conversations about who they are, what their journey looks like, why they're hoping to represent us, what issues are important to them and their hearing are important to us, and of course to talk about the importance of healthcare. But to start out, I wanted to take a moment as on every one of these programs to make sure, again, we're all getting a little smarter. Medicaid is an issue that comes up again and again, but every conversation I have with so many of you, with all of the events we've been having across the district, basic questions about the Medicaid program still persist. So I just wanted to put it out there. Medicaid essentially is our health insurance for our lowest income Americans. It covers many individuals who are disabled, many individuals who are also on Medicare, known as dual eligibles. It's a joint federal and state program that provides health insurance for low-income Americans. The federal government sets minimum requirements for this program, but allows states to otherwise tailor the program by mutual agreement to meet local needs. New York, like every state across the country, has taken advantage of that ability to tailor it to really reflect our values and care for our most vulnerable children, seniors, individuals with disabilities, and adults. The federal government matches eligible state Medicaid spending at least dollar for dollar, contributing more to poorer states, certain populations, and select expenditures. That's really important when you're thinking about some of these reforms, which we'll cover at another time. Broadly, Medicaid in New York covers around 7 million New Yorkers. And this was just released in a very timely way by the Kaiser Family Foundation last week in their state fact sheets, where they outline on a state-by-state basis who Medicaid covers. In New York, Medicaid covers nearly half of all births, 44% of children, 1 in 4 adults between the ages of 19 and 64, over half of working age adults with disabilities, 30% of Medicare beneficiaries, these are our dual eligibles, and then 64% of nursing home residents. That means if you have a relative or know of someone in your orbit, which many of us have at some point in our lives, who are in a nursing home, more likely than not, their payments for those services, those critical services in their last years of life are paid for through Medicaid. It is a program that's essential for us all. And through its payments, it actually supports a healthcare system, which all of us depend upon. What is being proposed in the One Big Beautiful Bill, which Congressman Lawler voted for, up to $670 billion in cuts to Medicaid, reforms that could push over 13 million Americans off of healthcare coverage when you combine the reforms to Medicaid and the federal healthcare subsidies. It would be devastating for New York, pushing up to 1.5 million New Yorkers off of New York State. And one reform I want to just put a small spotlight on today are these work reporting requirements for most ACA covered adults. This is a topic we briefly covered with Beth last time. This might sound great in theory, like if you are able to work, you should be able to work in order to get benefits. But when you actually peel the onion and actually see both who would be covered by this requirement and what it actually does in practice, most support for work reporting requirements halves. Who does this cover? It covers working age adults in Medicaid, and as the Kaiser Family Foundation reports, a majority of Medicaid adults are already working in New York. So what does this introduce? This introduces even more paperwork to a program that already requires a tremendous amount of paperwork to become eligible. This is not, you don't get Medicaid on a trust-based system. You have to apply, show a documentation of your income level and your assets in order to become eligible for this public assistance program. But with the introduction of new paperwork, it actively pushes folks who should be eligible for Medicaid off of the rolls. That's what it did in Arkansas. That's what it did in Georgia. We have real evidence-based case examples of the impact Medicaid work reporting requirements have on populations. But that is also the point. And I want to talk about that a little bit more with Mike in a little bit, but I wanted to take a quick step back just to remind us all, while Republicans in Congress are focusing us on Medicaid, and that's the lowest blue line here, over the course of the past 15 years for which data is available, while Medicaid cost growth on a per person basis has been around 30%. Private insurance, which the majority of Americans have through their employer or individual markets, have grown over 80%. And this is a point I want to linger on for a second. This is an issue that's not the responsibility of one party or another. While I think it's incredibly special that Republicans are focusing on reforms that would impact those who often don't have a voice at the table and are often most vulnerable in our society. The bigger picture issues, which I want to make sure we're coming back to again and again, in a space that Democrats have historically owned, are the kitchen table concerns about things like affordability. Healthcare is increasingly unaffordable for Americans. Whether you're talking about how many dollars are coming out of your paychecks to pay for premiums, to the copays and co-insurance you have to pay when you actually need healthcare services. It's an issue that affects everyone. And so with that, I'd love to introduce Mike Sachs. If you haven't seen him on TV, I'd encourage you to look up his previous clips, which are always insightful and pointed. He's a Supreme Court correspondent for has been a Supreme Court correspondent for the Huffington Post, political reporter on Fox 5, political correspondence for many of the Scripps news stations across the Hudson Valley in New York, an Emmy winner, a nationally recognized expert on the Supreme Court, and regularly featured across news outlets. So, Mike, it's so good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So I've seen you on the news, but like, who is Mike Sachs?
Oh, that's a big question. Who am I? First, my dad always taught me never to trust someone who talks about him or herself in the third person. So I won't say who is Mike Sachs. Who am I? So I, as you mentioned there, am a former political and legal journalist. I have a law degree that soon after I began practice, I wouldn't say lit on fire, but I put it aside to cover the U.S. Supreme Court, actually during the term where they were reviewing the constitutionality of Obamacare. And we can get into what that did to our own health system as well, in terms of the Medicaid expansion to the states that have the most vulnerable people. But I've spent my career looking at my journalism as a public service, as a way for my reading, our viewing public to understand how our government has worked in these last, 2025. I jumped in 2008, 2009, 2010, last 15, 17 years. And understanding that it's not just what the president does, or not just what the Congress does, but also how our full system, including the Supreme Court, molds our current discourse, molds our politics, molds whether we, the people, as a democracy, have a choice in how we drive our country forward. And throughout the course of my reporting, throughout the course of my career in journalism, my main focus in my reports to, again, my readers or viewers, has been to understand how the health of our democracy, or rather the lack thereof, its decay through various capture of our institutions.
How related is that to our understanding of the issues that are going on? I mean, I know I want to get to your journey, but I think this is an important point that we're all grappling with right now.
Yeah, it's deeply, completely, entirely very important. Because as we're talking about health policy, and as you're talking about the rising costs of private health insurance, as we're talking about the really robbing of healthcare from our most vulnerable to help pay for tax cuts for least vulnerable and our most well off in this country, that's all very well based and entirely inextricably intertwined with the health of our democracy. Because when we, the people, want to speak, but there's various choke points along the way by various institutions and organizations that have captured our democracy, we have to find a way to blow through that, break through it, and make sure that what we want, what we, the people, want, what is best for us to help each other, ends up prevailing. So in my journey, which I think began, frankly, if not with my very first election as an 18-year-old for the Bush v. Gore in 2000, then certainly watching our country be lied into war in the Iraq War when I was in my, I guess, early 20s. It began this notion of how to pursue, I mean, it's cheesy, but truth, justice, and the American way, right? The pursuit of truth, making sure our leaders aren't lying to us. Justice, making sure that our justice system serves the people and furthers our democracy rather than erodes it and prevents our voice from being made policy. And the American way, which is having policy that helps people and helps us prosper.
Imagine that.
And right, because right now we have in power, in my view, and I think it's empirically proven, a party that is dedicated to hurting people, tanking the economy, and then distorting the democracy to keep themselves in power because, well, hurting people and tanking the economy is unpopular. And as a journalist in my career, I wasn't out to tell people what to think. And I wasn't even sold on this full idea of what I've come to and why I'm running for Congress. Until the last few years where I saw it come to full fruition with the Trump years. But I saw it happening from the late aughts through January 6th and beyond, where you just see this movement, and it included healthcare with the attempt to take out Obamacare, a perfectly constitutional law where special interests and billionaires and industry were able to conjure up this made-up constitutional theory to pretty much destroy a law that was meant to hurt people, or meant to help people, rather. To destroy a law that was meant to help people because because the people who were bankrolling and conjuring up these made-up constitutional theories wanted to preserve more money for themselves and didn't care about helping people. And it almost won. And so one respect, it won completely when it came to Medicaid. So having seen this as a reporter and watching and showing my audience, showing our audiences how our system works, and then losing my faith in how that system was being served, how that system was being furthered, really played a part in my saying I need to get off the sidelines. You were talking about this as well, about why you're doing this, and this is really cool too, because I've been in print media, digital media, over the air, traditional broadcast streaming. I've done it all. Yeah, and seeing people like you come up and start saying, I want to have a voice. Anyone can do it now. That there's no barrier. And you're able to get out here and say what matters most to you, and have congressional candidates on to talk about what matters most to them. Like, that's super cool.
And really that's cool. Isn't that democracy in action? I actually think that this could, silver lining of where we are right now. I am very hopeful that if enough people don't believe that our direction of our country is not the direction that they believe our country should be headed in, this could actually be a golden age of participatory democracy, where people are.
And not just that, but we need to make sure that participation is actually made policy.
Yes.
Because again, there are choke points throughout the way. We can take back the House.
Yeah.
And we can say we have all these policies.
Yeah.
But what happens if you pass it to the House, but the Senate, isn't there for it? Or what happens if the Senate turns also, and Democrats, both, the party and people who believe in democracy, have 51 votes, but there's a minority ready to stop whatever's good. And then people say, well, you're not working for us. And what happens if you get all the way through? What happens if you were able to prevent Trump from, running for a third term, or prevent JD Vance from doing like Mike Pence refused to do this time in 2028? What happens if there's a trifecta of people dedicated to helping people, letting our economy prosper, and making sure the will of the people is seen through? Then there's a Supreme Court waiting to say, no, Democrats are unconstitutional. What you want, what you've passed through the voice of the people is illegal because we say so, we made it up. This is the full picture of what we're facing right now. This is the full picture of what I was seeing as a reporter covering all these branches of government, trying to let the people who I was reporting for see this. Yeah. And so when you talk about this golden age of participatory democracy, having, let 1,000 YouTube channels bloom, right? And let millions of people have their voices heard and effectuate it through the majority. What happens when there's still a capture, a minoritarian capture of our institutions?
And that's part of the a lesser thought about, I think, part, but a critical part of making sure that our values are represented in the policies that are actually implemented. But I want to talk about, I still want to linger on the journey.
Yeah.
Like journeys are so interesting to me because it's I think it's just a composite of all of these kind of decisions made at different crossroads. And the question I'll have next is, you were a reporter reporting on the news, and then there must have been some sort of a crossroads there where you decided you wanted to be a little bit more of an activist. And I'd love to hear both about that as well as outside of work. Like what are the things, how it, like what does your life look like? Because I do think we're all people just trying to do a thing. And I sometimes I think it gets lost and we have like these like far away representatives. Like, so I would love your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I am a people trying to do a thing.
Yeah.
I have 2 boys here. I live in Croton on Hudson, which is in Northwest Westchester, or Rivertown. I love it. It's just the best place in the world. An amazing community. Supportive for our family, for my kids. It's just great. Yeah. And part of being part of this community is recognizing that we're all in it together. You know, so yes, I'm on the campaign trail.
Yeah. But you also feel like the things like how do we get childcare, or just make sure that like our kids are taken care of? Is our education system working? I mean, like, these are the real challenges that every person in our region is facing.
All of us. And it doesn't matter what party you are, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. We all share these same everyday triumphs, tragedies, struggles, and surprises, right? It's all there all the time. Yeah. And that grounds one in the community. It grounds one in this district. It grounds one in this country. And, the key is understanding what we can be when we're all in it together. And at least in my community, like we see it. Yeah. And it's a really special thing. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a proud resident of this area.
Nice. So your political pivot, like your move to activism, and then like I would also love for you to kind of talk about if there was a moment when you're just like, oh crap, I need to do this.
January 6th, 2021. I was on the air. So as you noted, I was at Fox 5 New York, which is, I like to say, Sports and Simpsons, the local.
It's great.
And while I was there, I was the political and legal correspondent, and I called the shots as they were happening. There was no editorial control on what I was reporting. I was trusted to call it straight, and I did. Calling it straight at that moment, throughout the first Trump administration, frankly, was also showing the lies that were being put out every day. Tracking, really, I have a long Twitter thread going from like early pandemic all the way through January 6th, all the ways Trumpified Republican talking points of voter fraud leading up to the election. So to really make people have less faith in the election that he was probably afraid he was going to lose. But never did I think there would be an attempt at outright subversion that resulted in the insurrection at the Capitol. Never. So I was on air at 5 and 6 p.m. that day, and throughout that afternoon, I was just watching the feeds come in from Washington and figuring out how am I going to report on this insanity, this tragedy, this desecration of our democracy. And I get on the air, and I'm visibly pissed off. And I wasn't going to hide it, because this was part of the role of being a journalist in my mind in America. Is objectivity is not neutrality when it comes to the facts. And if there's an assault on our democracy and our freedom, journalists should be pro-democracy and pro-freedom. Like just flat out. So I told our viewers, this is based on the lies that our president, our former president, and when it came to 14 days later, was telling the American public, and got his followers out there to desecrate our democracy and try to overturn the will of the people. And I'd already been a pretty strong democracy zealot, having seen the Supreme Courts. I was in the Supreme Court when they reheard the Citizens United argument. I was first in line to get in to watch I think it was Justice Sotomayor's first day on the bench, Justice Elena Kagan's first day as Solicitor General. I was there seeing the writing on the wall that they're going to let money flood into our politics and distort our democracy. I was there in the courtroom. The Shelby County decision that gutted the Voting Rights Act The decision that where the court said they'd turn a blind eye towards extreme partisan gerrymandering. So I was there as the Supreme Court was in the driver's seat to get us to the point where Trump took advantage and then went from voter suppression to election subversion. And I thought I need to get in. Like this at that moment, like I've been on the sidelines. I've seen how we got to this point, and I know how to get us out of this point. But my focus at that point wasn't electoral politics. My focus then was, once my contract expires, how can I get involved in advocacy? And my advocacy, because I have long focused on the Supreme Court as the main policy making and breaking body in our country, get involved with Supreme Court reform, get involved with ethics reform, get involved with having the broader court watching and beyond public understand that this is not these some oracles of the law, but rather political actors who are part of a majority that was assembled by right-wing big money interests to make sure they were able to pretty much effectuate a constitutional revolution that locked the other side out of power, no matter what the people said. So that became part of my own work. But I think you had asked when I decided to run for Congress.
Yeah, it wasn't the first. It wasn't like, so Lawler's been in a little bit. Like, I mean, it wasn't the first go round. Like, what was we got to get in now?
My children were raised on a steady diet of Mike Lawler's lies while watching YouTube shorts that I did not like them watching, but every time I went into the kitchen to make them dinner, they put it back on TV.
But they're so digestible.
It's sort of like, like if they're eating garbage and you're like, well, just like finish your hot dog. Even the hot dogs are garbage too. Like, go watch awful cartoons that we have, like, that are half hour instead of watching this garbage YouTube clips. We're still saying eat your garbage, but it's the garbage we know is better. It's like this is the perils of modern parenting, which was the perils of our parents' parenting and going beyond. Anyway, so all the while, like, I remember the 2022 cycle. All the kids in my kids' elementary school knew Mike Lawler's ads by heart that were attacking Sean Patrick Maloney for hurting public safety in our safest district in the country. And they were lies. And I'd spend like 30 seconds just decoding the lie for my children, then 8 and 5 or 9 and 6. And like, oh, we get it now. Okay, yeah, what a liar. And then the 2024 cycle, getting the direct mail from Lawler, getting the YouTube ads, lies. Just distortions and lies, either about his own record or about the person he was running against. So 2 days before this past election, my children, I'm looking in my kitchen right now, I was making them dinner, and they said, Daddy, you should run for Congress. And I was like, well, I didn't say anything, but I thought, and when Lawler won again, and a Republican trifecta came in, and having the knowledge, if we want to know what we learned from this past election, well, we can learn from 2016 as well. When Republicans are in power and they hold all the levers of power, they hurt people, they tank the economy, and then they distort our democracy to keep themselves in power, because hurting people and tanking our economy is unpopular. So you see what's coming. And you see that there's a slim majority in the House that upon which Lawler is key to the majority. You have Trump in power, and we know what he's going to do without guardrails this time in his second time in office. And on that, like, after the election, on that moment, I saw the pain we're going to face. And people do not like getting hurt. They do not like the economy being tanked. They do not like their voices being taken away. And we're seeing it now. It's happening. It's happening. So I thought, this may be a moment to actually get in and move forward on the way I think we can get out of this issue, because I saw how we got here and I knew I had an idea of how to get out of it. And the House will be the one chamber of the one branch of the federal government that can be controlled by we the people. And it's the place where we then can be the megaphone, the promoter of what we can be when we're all in it together, so that can be contagious for 2028, for the Senate, and to ensure that this vision of who we are and what we can be when we help each other can be what carries America towards a new era that builds back from the rubble of the wreckage that Lawler and Trump will have left us.
Well, amen. Well, what's really interesting about, like, your background and the moment, as you've been describing it, and this is a point of personal frustration as well. Congressman Lawler and many other like Republicans right now running across the country have gotten very adept at speaking around the truth. And for me, it's almost worse than ignorance. Like there's like not knowing an issue and just speaking out of turn. I mean, that is just a sin in of itself when you're a representative. But knowing better and kind of purposefully talking your way around issues, because like if you there are some blatant lies that have been stated by our congressman, but he is an extraordinarily effective communicator. And that's why I think I personally think a lot of his messages have resonated.
But what are those messages? Sorry to interrupt, but what does he stand for? And besides playing moderate up here while voting MAGA down there, like I've tried in earnest to think, what does this person stand for? And I cannot find it. What are those messages? I don't know what they are. I see the YouTube videos now saying he will protect seniors when he just votes for a bill that will trigger a $500 billion sequestration of Medicare. Like I see a man who says he won't touch Medicaid and then is the deciding vote for slashing almost $700 billion from Medicaid. I see a man who makes these promises and then goes back on them the moment the rubber hits the road, when he is the vote.
Yes. So Mike. Here's what I'm saying. Like I agree that I think that we don't, unlike our Republican colleagues, we do not want to be the party of just fighting against the thing that's in motion. I really do believe we need to present a better vision and way forward. But I think what Republicans, including the congressman, have been very effective at doing is saying to folks who don't otherwise know the complexities of some of these issues, I want to protect able-bodied individuals. And I want, if you are able to work, I want you to work if you're going to get our taxpayer dollars. And I think if you just said that alone to people, like I would agree with those kind of statements. But the importance of when you hire a representative is that they should know enough and be honest and forthright enough about what their decisions actually mean for people. And I don't think that we've had candidates that and this is broadly across the Democrats, and I know the folks in the DCCC are watching. We're not good at this, and we need to get better. So you have previous extensive communication experience. Talk to me as you're communicating with residents across the district. How do you bring them back to the facts, and what are you hearing most importantly from them are their concerns?
Yeah. So bringing back to the facts, you identified a difficult issue here, because ever since Gingrich's Contract for America, which was stupid and evil, or Contract with America, or what have you, there's a messaging there that's meant to obfuscate the true interests involved in why they're going for these things, right? And people hear the top line of everything you just said about work requirements, but the second point, which is they generally decrease enrollment by confusing the population about who is eligible and how to prove eligibility, and have little effect on employment. Like that second order thing gets lost after the first order thing. So at least in our fight against these liars or dissemblers or obfuscators or defenders of Trump's awful anti-constitutional agenda, you got to punch back. It's no longer explaining the complexities. No, Lawler adds YouTube ad that lies, followed up with a punch in the nose. That's a lie. Have a frame where he has a hired senior saying he works for us. Bam, right after it, blast up $500 billion in Medicare. Poof, Lawler lied. Yeah, you don't need to do much more than that, at least on this local New York 17 level. I think just calling out the lies as they are, not like the fact checking that was rampant throughout Trump 1.0 that didn't make too much of a difference. But really just a punch in the nose. This person lied. This is the lie. And also, this is tangible. This is really tangible, because people will feel it. People voted for Trump, and this district is different, right? They voted for Harris for president, but they voted for Lawler for representative, which I think speaks maybe to Lawler's ability to play moderate up here when he was in the opposition. but he's not in the opposition anymore. He's part of a Republican trifecta. That when it's not aiding Trump and hurting people in Congress, then it's sitting on its hands, letting Trump hurt people.
Yeah.
And ceding our voice, our power, our purse, so the White House can steal it and turn the People's House into an extension of Trump's White House. So there are things happening now that Lawler cannot hide from. He cannot pretend he is for. Now that he's part of the governing coalition. So in that way, have price of eggs gone down? Has your heating bill gone down? Has your cost of health care gone down? The answer is going to be no across the board. People are going to be saying, I did not vote for this. And no matter how much Lawler will say, I'm helping you, people will feel that he's been part of the problem in hurting them. So talk about messaging. There will be a lot there and a lot to work with. And we can just point to this guy hurting you. And people will feel it. People will know.
So as you're talking to residents across the district, what are their major concerns? Because that is something I really want us to be focused on. A lot of times, and I do believe one of the causes of our not holding on to the House in the last election was just us not listening to and seating the kitchen table. What are the kitchen table concerns that you're hearing across the district?
Yeah, this district affordability is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for people in their immediate concerns and interests. People can't, who raise kids here, their kids can't afford to move back here. The cost of living is really, really tough in this area, and that along with so much women losing access to their freedom, voters having their power suppressed. It's all connected. It all goes back to the fact that people are no longer central to policymaking in this country, and that's disrupted every facet of life for hardworking families here in this district. Our politics is skewed towards the billionaires who've captured it. So when you talk about the affordability issue, think about who's getting more affluent while the rest of us can't keep up.
So when we're thinking about our next representative for this district, the list of folks is growing. When someone's thinking about you, Mike, what should they be thinking about as your key priorities on their behalf and what you would bring to the role? Yeah.
It's this vision. It's this understanding that how everything is connected, and having a representative in Congress who's not just one of 435, who will go down with the same laundry list of progressive and liberal and democratic policies that most of us in this race will have. But who's going down with an understanding of how we got here and how we can get out of it. Understand that what came before is broken. It's done. There's no going back to how things were. But what is our vision for how we can be? And we need a new generation of leadership that will throw out that playbook and fight for the American people, that won't be afraid of the obstacles ahead and will scream proudly, loudly, angrily, and yes, happily to get us to this next moment. There's been too tepid of a response. Oh, well, we tried. We tried to deliver for the American people, but the filibuster, or we tried to deliver for the American people, but the Supreme Court. The reason why Democrats now have this reputation of being out of touch with working Americans is because Democratic policies have failed to deliver working Americans. And why have they failed to deliver? Because they don't make it through the gamut of anti-democratic capture in our government. They don't. Right? You control Congress, good, or you control the House. Well, use that as a megaphone. Don't just introduce bills and then they go through, then they die. Keep at it. Keep pushing. Show people this is what we're doing for you. This is what it means for you. This is what the world we're trying to make for us. This is what you hired us to do. point at the people who are keeping you from having what's best for our country. Designate an enemy. And that enemy is not those who are trying to make sure the people's voice and what is best for all of us becomes policy in this country. That is not the enemy. And don't let the liars get away with saying that they are for you when all they're doing is hurting you and tanking the economy and then stealing your voice to keep themselves in power. So when you're talking about someone who's going to go down and be our representative in DC, everyone running in this race on the Democratic side, they're good people in for the right reasons. I've met a lot of them. They're awesome. Really, truly. You're going to meet a lot of them here doing what you do. Really, truly. We need authenticity. We need someone who understands how we got here and how to get out of it. We need someone with passion who's ready to meet this moment and knows these institutions and these players and is ready to fight from day one when you get in there and be part of this next generation of leadership that will show this country what we can be when we're all in it together. That will be my mission. That's this campaign's mission, to show our district who we are, where we can go, and we can lead this country straight out from New York 17. And I see the possibilities as endless and amazing.
Terrific.
And I'm super excited for this.
So one other question for you before I let you go, because I know you have a busy day ahead. If people are interested in learning more about you or getting more involved and supporting the campaign that you're now on, how should they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So you can go to MikeSachsForCongress.com. There you will get an idea of who I am from my bio. You can see our video, which made some waves. And in the coming couple weeks, the platform will go up and it'll be an agenda. It won't just be a laundry list of policy positions, but how it all fits together and where we can go with it. I look forward to hearing more. My email address is mike@MikeSachsForCongress.com. You can reach out to me directly. As you know, Kevin, I'm quite responsive. And I'll be out and about, going to protests, going to events, and happy to meet you if you want to come talk.
Yeah.
Invite me to meet your friends. I'm not talking about you, Kevin, although we can meet too.
Yeah.
But people watching.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm available. And when I'm not with my kids, which, is and they might come along too. My younger one loves this stuff.
Oh yeah.
He made a sign for the protest we went to outside Lawler's Town Hall in Somers, and he was a hit of the protest, and he wants more and more of it. So, you may meet my family too.
Yeah. Well, that's always great to see families on the campaign trail and getting everyone involved early, often, and onward. Mike, it's so thank you so much for taking the time today. It was a real pleasure to just get to talk to you, and I hope that for many of the folks viewing now and on recording, this was a helpful introduction to Mike and some of the policy issues that we're all grappling with, and how we can present a better way forward than the one being currently pursued by the administration and our congressman.
It's time to build a new house, everybody. Let's get it done.
Let's get it done. Mike, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you guys all again for joining me today. The lighting is better today, so you have to get me that. I couldn't figure out the Facebook integration, so this is live streaming on YouTube. I don't know whether it's live streaming on Instagram. We're gonna check. Maybe that'll be the next mountain we climb together. But again, I do hope this was really informative to everyone who is watching the last video. Had a great response, and we look forward to building from here. If you have any questions whatsoever or would like to kind of submit questions to our future interviewees, kevinfornewyork@gmail.com. That's where I'm collecting them. And that's where I want to be for now and for the next year, really advocating, informing our public about the policies that are being considered federally and what is at stake, particularly when these policies involve healthcare. And when it comes to the next election, I don't want to win by a point or two. I want to bring a bigger composition of our district along making sure that our candidates are focusing on issues that we're all concerned about. And again, showing a better way to get them resolved for every New Yorker. Good to see you all. Stay tuned. Follow me on the social platforms, and we'll be talking about some interviewees coming up this week. Talk soon.